Radio 1 FM 90.
Brought to you by Housing Finance Bank, a financial institution regulated by Bank of Uganda. Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us in this edition of Spectrum, coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90. This radio station is broadcasting from the central building here in the heart of our city, Kampala. We are also live on our website, which is www.radio1fm90.com. On that website, you look for the icon with the word Listen Live. Click on it, and you'll be live wherever you are, as long as you have an internet connection. The other option, we are live on the different radio listening apps. Those can be obtained from the Google Store of your smartphone. Download any and look for Radio 1 FM 90. And if you have an internet connection, you'll still be able to listen to us loud and clear. We are also on DSTV. Our audio channel there is 897. When you tune in and you search for that audio channel, you'll be able to listen to Radio 1 FM 90. There are two ways to contribute to this discussion. One of the ways is to call in. Time allowing, I'll open the phone lines for you to do so. But the other option is actually to send in a message as we continue with the discussion via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Today we'll be looking at the key issues that made headlines in Parliament today. Now today we know traders in Kampala closed their shops, complaining about the electronic physical receipting and invoicing system, IFRIS. They are also complaining about exorbitant taxes on imported garments, and also the culture of foreigners and manufacturers engaging in wholesale and retail trade. Now Parliament had a say on these issues, and certain decisions were taken. We'll be hearing how that issue ended and the views of the MPs, what exactly they want to see going forward. Another matter which was significantly discussed in the House today was the renovation of Nambole Stadium, which is being handled at the tune of 97 billion shillings. Now, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, is not happy about the quality of works. There have also been questions about construction of stadia to host the AFCON in 2027 and other subsequent games, including CHAN, that will be hosted, where Uganda will actually be taking part. I have one guest in studio today, the Honorable Jonathan Odur. He's a Rute South MP. He comes from the UPC. He's a shadow minister in charge of justice and constitutional affairs. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us, Honorable Jonathan Odur.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Good evening to our listeners.
Well, following closely what happened in Parliament today, I saw those two major things featured highly, especially under the segment of matters of national importance, and also even from the communication of the Speaker as she opened plenary today. Let's begin with the issues of the traders. What have you been able to do as people's representative on this particular issue in the House? Before we even hear your advice, your views on this issue, what has Parliament done?
Well, the issue of the plight of traders in mainly in Kampala and other towns in Uganda first came to light about a week ago in Parliament. It was brought to the attention through a petition. The traders came, they presented the petition to the leadership of the opposition. Honorable Joel Senyonyi and the shadow cabinet received them. And in the petition they had listed so many things. You have mentioned them, but the most pressing one is how the Uganda Revenue Authority is enforcing the IFRIS system on top of the other concerns that have been outstanding in the country for a long time. When the matter was raised in the floor, the Honorable MP for Kampala Central, Mohamed Sereko, also added his voice. And then the Speaker decided that time that the committee, the Minister and the Committee of Trade would have to sit and then chart a way forward. We were also informed at that time that we could not proceed to debate because the traders were scheduled to meet the President over the same matter. So the Speaker, acknowledging that the President is a high authority, decided that at that time Parliament did not have to proceed as we wait for how the President would resolve the matter. Now we have been following that Friday, I think, there was a press release from from State House. I think the press unit issued and said there was no scheduled meeting. The president had other appointments either in Mbarara or somewhere else. And you know that the traders backed up their disappointment, their anger, by closing the shops. You also know, and the listeners know, that government, instead of responding to the traders by way of dialogue, they decided to deploy the police, they decided to deploy the army. I don't know whether they intended that the army would force the traders to open their shops, because in my opinion, the traders had exercised one of the most peaceful ways of showing discontent, contrary to what has been sold before in the country, that strikes and demonstrations are of violent nature.
Well, the explanation which was given on the issue of the deployment was actually to protect those who would want to open their shops and continue with business. Apparently, there were some traders who actually wanted to continue selling their merchandise, and they are already adhering to IFRIS. And there's a section which is apparently politically motivated, from what we have heard, who are hesitant to adhere.
From what I heard is that the choice to close the shops was voluntary. They did not seek to coerce any other trader to close their shops. But as a network of traders who are faced with the same problems, it was thought that they would show solidarity. But I've not heard of any incident where the one who opened their shop was, for example, maybe attacked. Or I did not hear that, and I think the police has not reported on the same. Be that it may, it did not even need the military to come on the streets. The police would do that because that's part of their work. So it is quite clear that there were anticipation outside the close of the shops. Now, this week, we saw that the traders, the escalation of the exchanges between the traders and the URA, I think both sides are very adamant. So I want to first recognize that the issues that the traders are raising are very critical. IFRIS is a new development that was proposed by the people at Uganda Revenue Authority to be able to improve on the collection of taxes, tracking of business incomes, and making it easy to do the receipting and invoicing. It was proposed to replace, I suppose, the manual system that was in place.
The self-assessment system.
The principle of self-assessment has been there in our taxation.
Remains.
Yes,
okay.
It remains. If you are filing a tax, rental tax, declaring income tax, it's a self-assessment. That's what we do here. It is only after you have filed, based on your own returns, that the URA can either accept or they can come and verify. But with this system, is that now you have two ways. One is the electronic receipting, for those ones who are outside the VAT, and then the electronic invoicing, those ones who are within the VAT bracket. Now, with the invoicing system, is that as you sell, you charge VAT, and you are supposed to declare that VAT and remit on a monthly basis. It is also a requirement that you should not sell outside without issuing a receipt on that system. So there is a system, there is a machine, and a connection which is direct to URA, which for them in URA helps them to monitor, so that you don't under-declare, you don't dodge taxes and etc. That was the intention. But this system is also dependent on some machines that are a preserve of one of the companies that supplies, and the machine is costly. This system is also dependent on internet connectivity. Yes, it can work offline for some time. I think they say about 4 or 5 days. But when you go outside that, then the URA will notice that you are not issuing the invoices, and then they are going to penalize you, which penalty is very punitive. I think about 6 million shillings for each default. This system is also new. to most of our traders. We recognize there are traders who are literate, who are educated, who can afford to employ people who are specialized in that area. But there are also traders, as you know, they have their money and they are there and they cannot really understand. Now the issue is that VAT, which is causing, I think, the concern, is a consumptive tax. VAT is a system where there is a tax added at every stage of sale. I would say that at every stage. So if I give you an example, if I go and buy raw material, the person selling to me the raw material would charge the 18% VAT to remit to URA. And then when I bring the raw material and for example, I make a product, I also charge. I also
selling the product.
Yes, I also charge 18%. I sell to Kenneth.
You as a manufacturer? As a
manufacturer. Then I sell to you, Kenneth, who is a wholesaler, for example. The wholesaler also will add, at the point of sale, will 18%. Also add 18%. And then eventually to the retailer, and the retailer also has to charge the 18%.
Oh.
Now, the problem with that is that the retailer, the end user, who is buying from me, goes out and sells without knowing that from the total sales he or she is making, he is now required to also deduct 18%. Because this is a new system, and for us in the past, if I'm the final retailer, I just go and sell. If I'd bought a bag of sugar at 200,000, I sell at 260, I know I've made my let's say profits in quote. Of course, it wouldn't be 60,000 because of other costs. But literally, the 60,000 now belongs to me. Now, here comes, after I have sold, an invoice now comes to me and say that, by the way, you are supposed to remit to us the 18%. Now, that goes back to issue of also tax education. That this system and the tax itself and the system has not been well explained. So it came as a shock. So I think what I pick from the traders is that, well, for now, we have reservations about this system. And there are trust issues with this system. So first put it on hold. And then we sit on a round table. And you know how taxpayers are very important.
But URA says this system has been in place for the last 5 years. They've been trying to implement it, but the traders and all the other taxpayers seem not to be interested. They have done it with the manufacturers, they have done it with the wholesalers, but this lower side, where there is a lot of consumption and trade, people are simply hesitant. They do not want to comply with paying taxes.
Yes, and that's the reason I'm telling you, when you introduce something, even if it were in the law, passed already, but you have not been implementing it, and all of a sudden you come, and then you tell me that, by the way, you have been selling for these last 2-3 years, and in my estimation as a taxman, this is the tax that you owe us, and you must pay it. It becomes a shock to me to see a figure as high as maybe 100 or 200 million. I don't know how it has come. So the trader would be, the businessman in Chikubu would be right to question and say, well, you may be saying something, and we owe the duty to pay our taxes. But let us understand, and these are the concerns that we have. If you address these concerns, we shall pay you the taxes you want because we have understood it and we think it is fair. If they don't understand it, then they would now approach their political leaders and say, but look here, we have been told there is a tax, and you, my representative in parliament, you passed this tax, but it is becoming problematic. It is killing us. Now, parliament would have to act by entertaining that before even parliament, the executive would have to act, and then act by bringing an amendment either to reduce the taxes or to do something that can provide a remedy for them.
How about this argument that this 18% is actually paid by the final consumer, and therefore the people actually selling, the traders here in Kampala who are selling, are not remitting this money to URA, and are instead looking at it as if it is their profit. They are making exorbitant profits and not fulfilling the requirement of the law to remit the money to URA.
That argument could be right, but like they say, on one side, ignorance of the law is no defense. I told you already that if a retailer, the final person, goes into the market and sells without knowing that he or she was supposed to deduct 18%, yes, the profit will look more, 60,000 per bag, but out of that, 18% was to come. So what they are saying now is, let's sit down and go step by step.
All right.
So that we understand it, but also too, the system of filing it. And let me tell you one other problem I picked when I listened to them. Because this VAT is a monthly, there is a monthly obligation on the trader to
file.
Now,
To file and pay.
to file and pay. Now, you know, partially it is based on what we call invoicing. An invoice may mean that I have actually sold and have not received money. I know maybe here at the radio station you do that quite a lot.
They give you an LPO.
You advertise, yes, you advertise for entire month or 3 months. Now, I will capture it in my system and file, but when I actually still don't have the money.
The money.
So the system at URA does not recognize that. It will go ahead and say you have filed for this amount this month,
Pay.
and you are supposed to pay after this number of days. Now, if you don't pay,
6 million.
the penalties now come. Now, the penalty itself is to penalize you for not paying, but there is also interest imposed on that amount of money. Now, I think that is where
It's a big problem.
Yes, I pick from the traders. It is an area that URA and the traders can engage to confirm.
All right. Now, on this issue of IFRIS, finally, where is the position of Parliament? What have you decided as the House?
Well, I can authoritatively say that for now, Parliament is neither here nor there. Partially because even in the understanding of the system in the House, I'm sure you must have had so many members of Parliament saying this or that does not speak to the issues that are there. Some think that IFRIS is actually a tax, which is not. Some of them think it's something that has just come today. They are not aware that the House itself had passed VAT. We amend the law every now and then, every financial year. So we had relied on the goodwill of the Ministry of Finance that had promised us that they would engage with the traders.
All right. Honorable Bahati had promised to report back to the House. Has the engagement been concluded?
No. Unfortunately, the time that he should have reported, the House was adjourned. So we hope that tomorrow in the morning, the House will sit at 10 a.m. And we think it will be the first priority for Honorable Bahati to report.
One last thing, even before we actually move away from maybe that issue of VAT and IFRIS, they have also been concerned that VAT at 18% is a little bit higher compared to other countries in East Africa. Some traders have been actually saying we need to harmonize this. Do you agree with that argument that
any tax
that threshold is too high?
Any tax rate that is regressive, that is prohibitive, that makes it difficult to collect taxes is subject to review. And I welcome it. I think part of the dialogue with government is to maybe bring that down. Now, in taxation, there is a theory that sometimes you can lower the rate of taxes. By doing that, you get more people.
You collect more.
Yes, even more people now willingly, voluntarily come and join and register for taxes because now they know the rates are lower. In the end, you may collect actually much more than charging a higher rate, and then you have only a few people paying these taxes. So that is a dialogue we can have, and this is the right moment to do that. The Ministry of Finance has moved amendments to the tax bills, including VAT, income tax, excise duty, stamp duty, etc. And right now it's being considered by the Committee of Finance, Planning and Economic Development of Parliament.
So this
now
crisis has come at the right time.
Yes. Once a bill has come to the floor of Parliament, by extension, all provisions of that law are amendable. Meaning that if there are issues with VAT, there are issues with income tax rates, this would be the time for the executive, but also for Parliament to entertain. And I remember last week, the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament did mention that in processing the tax bill, the Committee of Finance must give platform and opportunity to the stakeholders. I hope the committee will demonstrate that they have interacted with Casita, for example, that they have interacted with Uganda Manufacturers Association, for example, that they have interacted with even the commercial banks and all the stakeholders that the big players in the, not only the big but also the small.
Those that matter.
Those that matter. So that as Parliament, for us, we are supposed to legislate under Article 79 for peace, order and development. If our legislation is creating disorder, if our legislation is creating problems with our development, it's incumbent upon Parliament to be able to make laws that will make our traders feel comfortable to do their business, for them to grow, and also for them to contribute fairly the taxes.
All right.
One other argument that people have with this VAT, taxes are supposed to be paid depending on the level of income. So on the side of the final consumer, if a VAT is being charged on sugar, even a rich man in town here pays the same, like an old woman in the village. That shouldn't be. That's an argument that can be made as from the side of the consumer, that I must pay taxes. The person who earns more money should pay more. For example, we have directors in government agencies, you have members of parliament who are well and highly paid. Those ones must also pay taxes higher than those ones who are earning low income.
All right. Maybe one particular issue before we actually move away from the issues of the traders. How do we deal with this particular situation? We are looking for investors, but now there is a complaint that actually foreigners are actually being favored than the locals. When you look at the issues of the textiles, the traders are complaining and saying, look, these people came here as investors, they are now wholesalers, they are now retailers, and they are even hawking. How do we deal with that particular issue? I'm actually told you passed a law. Is it the Anti-Competition Act?
Yeah,
Competition, like
yes, Competition Act. You see, first of all, one other issue that the traders are complaining on is the weighing system. URA has introduced, they just weigh and they assess you based on the weight of the clothes you have brought. I think the traders have a genuine concern there, because in the past there was a different regime that worked well for them. Now on the textile issue, there has been this deliberate, policy shift from government that they don't want second-hand clothes in this country. Now I see that the purpose of that very repressive regime for clothes probably is in further pursuance of that policy shift from government. In other words, sometimes taxes are used to force people off certain goods and services. Now, that being the case, I think it is unfair to people who have invested a lot of money in that second-hand clothing business. Let me even tell you, there are many Ugandans, even at very senior level, high level, who still put on second-hand clothes. We understand, but we should not allow simply for traders who have not yet found alternatives to be pushed using this tax regime. I think they have a concern on that new initiative to weigh and then assess them, which does not make them get profit. But the issue of our small business spaces being dominated by foreigners is not new. And this is one of the greatest failings of this NRM government. We have left Uganda to be as open as I don't know what. That anyone can come in because they have a name of being a foreigner, and we are such a nice country, we are such a courteous country, we allow people to come and take even the small spaces that our people should be. It is on record that some alleged investors have been found roasting maize. They have been found making chapat and bread, and now they are moving on the streets hawking goods and services. Now, one of the concerns the traders also have is that if you are a manufacturer, you stick to manufacturing. Let somebody else handle the issue of your outlet, and let other people also do the retail trade. You cannot establish your chain from your factory up to the final market, the retail trade. That pushes the rest of the traders out. If you try to compete with them, you are unlikely going to succeed, because their last focal person, who is a retailer, will sell at a lower price than you, because they are working to knock you out of the business. I can give, if you are a producer of cement, and then you open your outlets, and then you go to Lira, you also have your outlet, you want to compete with natives, and you are selling your cement now, a bag at 35,000 shillings, and the same price you sell to a retailer within the same vicinity, the retailer can only make profit if he sells at 38,000 shillings. Now, why would a buyer go to buy at 38,000 shillings when they know that there is the producer is selling at 38? I think that is partially the concerns they are raising. And lastly, they also raise something on interest rates. You know that Bank of Uganda has variously tried to lower what they call the central bank lending rate. It even came as low, I think, as 8 or 6%. That was supposed to have a net effect of reducing the commercial lending rate to maybe like 16%, but it has never happened.
Never.
Yes.
Right, stay tuned to 21 FM 90. We need to go for a break now. When we return, we'll shift our gears and look at the issue of Nambole Stadium, but also the other stadia that are supposed to be constructed ahead of the AFCON 2027. Honorable Jonathan Odur was among those that raised concerns around this. And we understand Parliament made a visit to Nambole. There was a report presented today in Parliament. What is the way forward? Will we be able actually to host the World Cup qualifiers in June here in Kampala, or we will be doing that in another country? Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90 will continue after this break.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum, live on Radio 1 FM 90. Our topic of discussion today, we are looking at some of the key issues that made headlines in Parliament today. There was the issue of the traders who are on strike. We are waiting the dialogue that is being undertaken, spearheaded by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Trade, meeting the leadership of Kasita. And probably we are told President Yoweri Museveni will also be able to meet the traders, the leaders of the traders, on Friday. Earlier, the information we had received at the beginning of last week, that kind of meeting didn't happen. State House, they are communicating that the president was a little more busy. We will be finding out the decisions taken, and we'll create a platform to actually follow up on that particular issue. Now, Honorable, let's shift our gears and move on to the issue of Nambole. We, as taxpayers, allowed expenditure of 97 billion to renovate Nambole, the pride, as you're aware that sports is a uniting factor in this country. People turn up in huge numbers regardless of their political affiliation to support Uganda Cranes wherever they're playing. So a renovation of the stadium did not come as a surprise to many, but all of a sudden CAF turns up and says we are not ready to host the qualifiers in June. We have probably to find another ground outside the country where we are likely to pay, and also Ugandans will incur costs to travel to and fro to actually cheer up the boys. How far have you reached with this issue of Nambole?
Well, first of all, there is a huge pride in any sports fan to be able to cheer their team on their home turf. And in football, there are tremendous advantage with playing at home, in full view, in front of your nationals who are cheering you, people you know them, people you interact with them. And there's also that emotional attachment that the fans bring to energize you. Even when you are playing badly, they can cheer you on and you can get a win. So it is not surprising that over the last few years we have dropped points. Perhaps we should have gone to the World Cup, but because we couldn't play some of our home games here, we should have qualified for other competitions like Olympics and etc. So what is now at stake is that on the 3rd of June this year, we are supposed to host Botswana in the AFCON qualifiers. Then on the 10th, which is just 6 days after that, we are supposed to host Algeria, also here at home.
World Cup qualifier.
Yes. Now, what has come to light is that the Ministry of Education and Sports, that is responsible for Nambole Stadium, had contracted the UPDF Engineering Brigade to do renovations. It is contested whether it is actually renovation or like just
reconstruction.
Not even reconstruction or like a facelift or something like that.
Okay.
But whatever it is, the minister confirmed it is a renovation, and we are waiting for some documents to confirm. So the minister in charge of sports, Honorable Peter Gwang, and Ugandans would recall variously last year promised that Uganda Nambole would be ready. I think 3 times that deadline was not met. This year he promised already twice, and that deadline also has not been met. So about 2 weeks ago or so, CAF was here. In the regulations that govern stadium inspection, regulations, CAF regulations of 2022, under Articles 3 and 4, there are strict guidelines on how a host federation can have its stadiums approved. When they came here, they simply did not find Nambole fit to host any international game under category 4 stadium. There are 4 classifications of the different stadiums, but the one that a national team can host, both CAF and FIFA competition, is under category 4. So Nambole fell short, and there are so many other things that have been listed there. So the concern then came that Uganda will have to play its home matches away again. Now Morocco, where we have been playing, we had received information, offered their venue free, but one of the teams we are playing, Algeria, has a disagreement with Morocco and has objected to playing in that country. Now a delegation from Uganda approached the Rwanda for Rwanda to be able to provide, because the stadiums in Rwanda have been approved. And I think that raised some serious concern. And as you know, Rwanda is our young brother, you'd say.
You also had issues with them.
Or young sister country. And plus other issues. I think it didn't augur well with people this side. So it prompted the intervention of, we are told, the president, the minister said today, the president, the speaker of parliament, and so many stakeholders that approached CAF and said, look here, we will be able to do something very fast and have you back to see the progress we have made in those areas. Now the issue arose that 80 billion that was given was not enough, and there was need to add the 17 billion. Now a total of 97 billion has now been released for that purpose. As to whether the renovation or facelift requires all that amount, I think is subject to scrutiny. The Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament did mention on the record that she would demand for a forensic audit. Now, those who understand the auditing language, a forensic audit is ordered where there is a serious suspicion.
Question mark
on the use of the fund. It probably means that not that entire amount of money was required. And as you have heard, the money seemed to be spent in something else. We are hearing about some compensations also taking place. We are hearing about some essential items that should actually be there that have not yet been fitted.
And we have also had now Pioneer Bus, which is parking in that area, wants 27 billion shillings to remove their buses.
Yes, we have required the minister to bring documentation to know the kind of contractual obligation that transpired between the two entities. We were told that the Uganda Land Commission, before Nambole acquired its own title, had leased the space to about 2 different companies, the Pioneer on one side and another one. Now we are told also that one of the leases had expired, but it appears out of connivance, instead of allowing the other lease also to expire, somebody from that side moved to terminate and knew very well that there was a consequence in termination. So this is a case of insider dealing that I think the state, anyway, we don't have a very serious state to deal with the issues of corruption. But if there was a serious state machinery, would have picked interest in that and would have exposed whoever is trying to swindle money through government by claiming that 27 billion in unfair termination. So there is a syndicate that can be seen on the face of it. But we also know, I think you mentioned that Parliament went to Nambole. I must say that Parliament did not go to Nambole because Parliament, as you know, is well defined. So what we had is that the leader of Parliament, the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, and her small delegation of selected MPs, including some few commissioners, went.
Yeah,
and
the Speaker, the head of the institution, and members of the commission, that is Parliament.
They are not. That's not Parliament.
Okay.
The law defines what Parliament is, and I can defend that. So let's just recognize that the leadership of Parliament went and did their fact-finding visit, and there are some things that they have revealed. We also know that the leader of the opposition had also intended to go with his delegation to visit, but today we were informed that the contractor has asked not to be interfered with for the next 2 weeks, meaning that members of the public, even statutory bodies are barred, which is surprising. I don't know whether they just prayed or asked in good faith not to be interfered with, or because they are soldiers, they think that they can block anyone who goes there. That would be unfortunate in the circumstance, because there is nothing, I suppose, they are hiding. And in visiting them and checking whatever they are doing may be helpful in pointing to them some areas that may need improvement.
All right. Let's blow it up a little bit. What does that mean? Because we are supposed to host AFCON in 2027, and we have mega projects to actually construct 2 stadia in Hoima and Akibwa. When we have this kind of situation with Nambole, what are you doing as members to actually ensure that there's not this kind of mess? Because I've seen somewhere where we are told the stadium will be completed in 20 months. I've seen those kinds of deadlines. We are likely to run a risk if we do not complete them in time. What are we doing as Parliament to ensure that projects are on time, but there's also value for money?
There is a huge risk that Uganda may not be one of the host countries of the AFCON 2027.
No, actually we were confirmed, and all that we have to do is to prepare the infrastructure.
No, we have not yet been confirmed. That is a preliminary, what they call preliminary award, subject to certain things. For example, we have not even paid the commitment fees yet. I think about $114 million you must pay. We have not yet. So that award that is subject to certain conditions. Now, one of the conditions is that you pay commitment fees to CAF, which we are providing for, I think, in this coming budget. It was unfunded priority as presented by the ministerial policy statement. Unfunded, meaning if we don't find the money, we can lose that. That's the first risk.
Well,
the second risk is
that you people have other priorities.
Yeah, the second risk,
including your travels abroad, we are seeing.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
You are increasing your kitty as MPs.
Yes, we'll come to that. The other issue is that the hosting stadium must be ready by 31st December 2025. Because the first tournament that you host is the local championship for African players based in Africa, called CHAN. So for you to qualify to host the AFCON, the preceding tournament is actually
the curtain raiser.
Yes, the curtain raiser is CHAN. So depending on how successfully you are ready and prepared to host the CHAN, which takes place a year before the AFCON itself. So by December next year, the stadium must be ready. Now, as to whether Akibwa, Hoima and Buhinga Stadium will be constructed is another matter, because up to now there is no contract. There is no contractor contracted.
What are you talking about? On Akibwa, we saw Minister Peter Ogwang actually telling us there's an Egyptian consortium that is going to handle the construction.
He was speaking big for nothing. That was just hot air. because at that time there was a serious matter with the by-elections in Dokolo. And because in the entire Lango, people had said that without building a Kibwa, there will not be vote for NRM at the presidential level and also at the parliamentary level and even local government level. So I think they hatched a plan thinking the people of Doholo were going to fall for it, or the people of Lango. So there was a rushed procedure. I asked questions. When he was there, he actually said, I have come, the contractor is ready, the equipments are on the way, all the machineries have been mobilized, and the work will begin in 1 week's time. That was by next Tuesday. Up to now, it is now coming to 2 months.
All right.
Nothing has happened.
Now, one of the other biggest questions, of course, Ugandans have on their minds is, do we have this money to build this stadium, or we are likely to borrow?
From what I hear, there are attempts to get some...
or it's going to be a build, operate, and transfer?
The model will be decided much later.
Okay.
What they are trying to do is to get a pre-financer, somebody who will come with their own money to design and then build and transfer. I don't think they will operate. At some point, one of the contractors was positioned as somebody who would also be able to operate and then transfer. But I don't think, in this kind of economy, I don't think a prudent investor with their money would take that option, that they're going to come here and build and manage, operate, and transfer later on. So the model will be discussed. But what is important is that up to now, all the money required for the construction of Hoima, construction of Buhinga, construction of Akibwa have been stated by government and the report of the Committee on Education and Sports that the money is not yet available, so they are recommending that it should be moved from unfunded priority to the funded priority.
All right.
Yes.
We have comments coming in from the listeners. Very quickly, they are touching on both subjects, but let's begin with this one. Anthony, listening in from Kibuli, says, good evening, Spectrum. So what next now? How long are we going to close our shops? How do we cover up with the landlord based on the days we did not work? What we want to hear this night is that tomorrow we should open our shops. Now, that is a desperate trader there with that comment. We have Vincent Biarugaba. The government intentionally prefers to keep a cash economy which does not allow transparency, and thus a lot of leakages on tax. The new taxes sales of non-performing assets, land, houses, etc. How will the government manage this? When a person can carry Uganda shillings 500 million and buy property in cash, why would the president, prime minister, carry a sack envelope of 10 million plus? There has to be a will to expand the tax base. Why can't government invest in educating people to formalize businesses so that it's easier to tax them? A chapati guy who does 10 or 2 kilograms of wheat packets daily makes a profit of 30 to 50K daily, making 1.2 million to 1.5 million net income monthly. How much is he taxed? That's a question there from that listener. We have another comment from Ariko in Tororo. URA is failing to collect tax because of government's greed. We would collect a lot of money from indirect tax from fuel if we allowed many Ugandans to buy more cars by not overtaxing during acquisition. Can you imagine? Very many Ugandans are registering trucks from Kenya because we are too expensive. We need to revise our tax for easy tax collection. Another comment, Paul from Mutungo. Here again, even if you are introduced ways to cap tax defaults, it's a system designed by man, and many will beat the system because one offers you just 1 million as a URA officer to bypass the system, and he or she takes the offer. A lot of people have gained wealth from corrupt officials in URA. Another comment, good evening, gentlemen. Paying tax has never been a problem to Ugandan. It's the misuse of it where we keep saying we have shortage, so we increase taxes for others to swindle. We had the whole speaker saying an MP remarks on the issue of expenditure was nonsense. Then we have Godwin in Tinda. I wish to appreciate Honorable Odul for being a brilliant legislator. Today Parliament looked shabby when Honorable Gwang had an altercation with Honorable Magogo. My question is, why did the Speaker choose to go to Nambole for a fact-finding mission with Honorable Mpuga other than going with the Sectoral Committee of Parliament? Another comment, Robert writes in and says, hello, Honorable. Interesting to note that some MPs were not aware they passed the freeze procedure. Anyhow, you MPs have increased your budget by over 100 billion in the next financial year. What are some of your assumptions to support increased tax collections? Well, those are some of the comments that are coming in from the listeners. One writes in against the presumptive taxing approach should also be done away with, because it's unfair to send someone a tax bill simply because they have a TIN, yet they have not earned any income. Well, those are some of the comments that have come in, Honorable. If you can respond to any of them there.
Well, I want to appreciate, I think most of the comments are well-intentioned, they are well-informed, and it means that they keep track of what happens in the country. On the issue of presumptive taxation, in some cases even what we call advance tax, especially if you look at people who are in the transportation industry, the buses, the taxis and the rest, there is an advance tax that they pay. At the end of the year, they do not mind whether the vehicle actually made a loss or not. You are then asked again to renew an advance tax on the same vehicle. So in other words, if you pay the 1.5 million for a 7-seater bus, and then within the year maybe the bus breaks down or the taxi breaks down and you repair it, in the next year you will not be allowed to deduct. Ordinarily, the principle of taxation is that if I've paid something in advance, when I file my tax returns, I must be allowed to deduct from the advance in case I have made a loss. So I agree that we need reforms in the tax sector. I must add that about 3 years ago, we had a very robust debate in Parliament, and we questioned government on their comprehensive tax policy. What informs our decision to decide that this year we are going to bring such a tax? For example, right now there is a proposal to tax 5% capital gains on what they call non-business assets. And of specific interest to us is now the proposal to tax land within cities and municipalities. By extension, soon it will go to land in town councils, in sub-counties, villages, and etc. And you know the suspicion we have, the high land grabbing appetite that we have within the government system. What does that mean in the long term for the people who are poor in the village, but whatever they have is their land where they stay? So you can already see that there is a chaotic taxation policy in somebody's head somewhere in Uganda. They just wake up and decide we need more money, and what comes to their mind very fast? Fuel, because they know it is easier. People are going to put fuel, so just keep adding 100 every financial year. You keep adding 100. So next year potentially now, tax on a liter of diesel, a liter of petrol will be around 1,550 per liter. And you know how fuel is a driver of so many things in the economy. I agree that there has been abuse of public funds in this country by all the three arms of government. More pronounced is the abuse we have seen within Parliament. Because I pick on Parliament, the budget of Parliament is about 950 billion, under 1 trillion shillings. In terms of the total expenditure of government combined, it looks small. But why do people focus on Parliament? Because Parliament is like, I don't know whether I can compare to the Pope or to an archbishop. So you cannot see your flock enjoying, say, beer or dancing, and you, the bishop, you decide to say, I think they are very happy, let me also go and join them. It is your duty to bring them off that. So Parliament has a higher duty. It bears a higher call to do things correctly and rightly to restore the trust, because that's where people have sent their representatives. Now, the news that come out of Parliament, of course, you saw the increase, the proposed increase. At this time, everyone had expected a reduction because of what is going on in the country, a reduction, but then you are seeing an increase. And we have discussed within the shadow cabinet with our leadership that we must pronounce ourselves, at least as the opposition, very clearly on this matter. because Ugandans have hope in us, and they know that we are the only.
Will you be able to raise questions? Because we see there that part of the money will actually be going to the office of the leader of opposition, which by extension benefits you people who are also in the shadow cabinet. You'll be saying that we need to go to this and this country for benchmarking, we need to do this and the other.
No, it is not wrong for the institution of parliament to benchmark, but it must be a benchmarking that is necessary,
all right,
not wasteful in its nature, and you must see a direct contribution or improvement in our legislation, improvement in our policies as a result of going to those countries. Now, parliament has traveled.
All right.
Do we see better tax regime? The executives have traveled. Do we see better roads? Do we see better hospitals and the rest? That is where the problem is. If you travel and you cannot change anything, then it becomes just business for whoever is traveling.
All right, I'm afraid time is not our best ally. Thank you very much, Honorable Jonathan Oduru, Erute South MP, member of the Uganda People's Congress, Shadow Minister in charge of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, for sparing time to speak to Ugandans.
You're welcome.
And thank you very much, dear listeners, for listening in and contributing to this program. Tomorrow, same time, another topic. But up next, we have the news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, we'll have the Soul Train with BB Jr.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.